Sorry I missed
Good.
last week. I've been busy.
Yeah.
Well, George, I missed the weather report last week, so unless you want to wait to see if anyone else shows up, I hope you give us a weather report today.
The weather report is that it is way too warm and way too dry in Charleston, South Carolina. We need a nice few days of steady rain and 40 degrees, and that's coming later this week. The deer forecast is for the rut to wind down. How was that? We'll be cutting this out of the published version. Yeah, a lot going
The
on.
surf report.
I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I shared that we have the guys are coding what I call compare, which is going to allow you to compare to run your own senior leadership alignment reports, and you're going to have to cut and paste and create your own. I can't do all of your job, man, and you'll also be able to, let's say you're in front of CEO workshop. You'll be able to run compare, and after we get compare out, we'll be running some averages and some other analytics, high level analytics, so you guys can guide discussions with a Vistage group, with a CEO workshop, marketing event, et cetera. It will also give you the ability to compare your customers, right? Let's look at a cohort of customers and our clients. And what does that look like? So I'm excited for that.
There are some coaches out there that will put together cohorts as a connection tool. Also creates a lot of stability. Maybe they're not quite the Vistage total, but the idea is the common denominator is you. There's a lot of evidence you can create a very, very stable and maybe bypass the Excel council. With Excel council, not all the members are your clients and can tend to be a little distracting off your mission, depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
You know,
sure. And you know who's doing that and really crushing it is Vince Mastrovito. He
really?
created something he calls the T3 Institute.
Okay.
Through his Rolodex of current and former clients, and for a reasonable investment on their part, they're now in he has 2 or 3 cohorts stood up, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's a compelling
Yeah,
offer for a client.
I was just reflecting with Ed the other day. It's like as we try to teach these concepts, we're repeating ourselves over and over again. And oftentimes, if you had an option to just, hang on dimension one and communicate that to the clients to understand, and then it's, just creating your own modules around that are customizable. And so, because it's a pretty complicated subject matter, right?
Yeah, it
Especially
is.
if I've been running a business and trying to keep my expenses down and get sales. And now, what you're telling me, I have to do even more and think more strategically. And
I'm not telling you you have
oftentimes,
to do more, Mr. Client. You're the one who wants to change. And if you think
I,
what you're doing right now is going to get you there, then let me know if and when I can help. And if not, you're going to need to make some investments, and it's going to involve time and it's going to involve money. And if you don't want to, then that's cool. But that means you don't really intend to change. You just want to. And that's a big delta.
I'm kind of stirring the pot here a little bit, but I was in a webinar last night with the guys out of Coach's Coach. Now they've rebranded, but Eric Dumbaugh brought a resource in. And interesting tidbit is they've actually have a part of the evaluation is to go and interview 12 of their either clients or suppliers. And during that time, they're asking a series of questions to round out the analysis of the business. And oh, by the way, there's 12 new prospective clients there because they all are running their own businesses. And he says out of the 12 that he interviewed, the hit rate is about 1 or 2 that actually propagate into a new client, which is by virtue of doing the due diligence on the first client A in the supplier base. And now they're like, well, they asked that question that's like, tell me more about this. I could benefit. So you're basically guilty by association with this client A,
Smart idea.
and it might be an interesting way to parlay your biz dev and really kind of a natural. You have
Sure.
12 new prospective clients that you're interviewing for client A. You get paid to do biz dev work.
Yeah. Well, it's a good idea. I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out.
Yeah, I mean, even if we were to add on or take one of the modules related to your supply chain and drill down a little bit deeper, what questions we want to have for your supply chain.
Well, it's
And
interesting.
then,
It's interesting, Joe, because we did that work a few years ago for United Technologies. And they were we did it with two MEP programs, one with United Technologies in Connecticut and one with Newport News Ship down in Norfolk, Virginia. And both of those obviously large defense contractors that paid for with defense budget money. And what they did is they went out and they used discovery analysis, the level one analysis, the level one type analysis. It wasn't clarity at the time with their supply, the other manufacturers. So the prime was pushing it down because they wanted to identify a couple of things. One was how strong, how resilient are the individual businesses, and the other is, well, that was the key thing. Like what kind of threats do we have after this was right after the big budget fight. How many years ago was that? God, was that 10 years ago now? That giant budget fight. And when the defense budget, the federal budget got frozen. Anyway, but what they found was fascinating. And Gen Edge down in Virginia did some really, really good work on this. In the case of Sikorsky, they found these two machinists. It was just two guys were making some kind of magic part for a helicopter for tilting the rotors on Blackhawks. And it was just two 60 some odd year old guys making these, just grinding these parts out. And they were the only people who knew how to make them and were supplying them. And that's a little bit of a kink in the entire defense.
yeah.
But you can uncover a lot of really great information running it. That's kind of a bigger story about running it with suppliers. Those guys, but business coaches, is further down market than we really want to play, right? I mean, they're very strong in the $1 million businesses, and less so when we get past three. We're finding, that ideal clients are three and up, because to your point, Joe, you have to have the money to invest to make, to grow. And if not, why are we spending time with them? We can do it for a variety of reasons, but at the end of the day, and I'll see Barry is going to start nodding his head up and down. If they don't have the budget, we can decide to help them, but we're not going to make any money in the process. So, and I'm not advocating dumping. Every business can grow, right? That's where I start my book. But yeah.
I thought the combination of being able to biz dev and to get the intel that the most time business owner, I was just with one yesterday and their supplier, this real high end sound equipment, and there are like two distributors in the U.S. and the groups out of Germany, and so they're putting all this negative spin on what the manufacturers thinking about them, because they need to spend more money and they need to invest in equipment, and they're a distributor, but they're also a primary user, right? So they're kind of trying to preserve that discount to be able to make them more competitive in the marketplace. But what questions would we have as far as coaches are concerned to help them, get information in a very tight time frame to kind of validate their vendor relationships and validate their market share.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what all information you can get, but
Hey, George, back on the earlier point that you were making about comparative analysis. So the financial analysis tool that I used, they have a module that does that. You can set up, in that particular case, you can set up parameters like, margin change, revenue change, financial KPIs. So conceivably you could do the same thing with this tool, Clarity, and they set it up so that it rings a bit, figuratively rings a bell. Hey, you got a client here that's in potential jeopardy or something like that, and they actually have a module which.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're looking at the financial data, and and when there's an issue, a pending, something that looks like it could become a problem, they're giving you a heads up. That's thinking. There's a good use for. That's good thinking. I like that.
They even go to the extent of creating a heat map in one display method.
Yeah, it's interesting. And they're able to do that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. They're able to do that because they have the financial data. So they're running. It's interesting. So they're looking at the outputs of the business engine, and in real time saying, hey, this is not, this is trending in the wrong direction. This ratio is off. You're falling behind your competitors, what have you.
Yep.
It's interesting. We do not yet. That's interesting. Food for thought. Because right now it's, clarity is used by you with your client. And I would anticipate that, that
Yeah,
your
the situation, I mean, our situation, our being clarity, is a little bit different.
Yep.
If you've got two clients, then all you have to do is look at the data for those two clients. If you got 20 clients or 50 clients, then having a tool that analytically looks at, okay, and senior leadership were this and strategy were here and blah, blah, blah. So.
Well, Steve, let me take that one step further. If we think about being relevant to our client base, and we go to the earlier conversation about having cohorts of clients, if you run compare on, let's say you have 20 clients and you run it with all of them, what are you going to surface? Well, you're going to surface opportunities, first of all, to call clients on specific points. You're going to surface opportunities to put out collateral, right? Marketing, webinars, etc. You might be able to invite clients to very curated workshops. You have identified as, and it'll just be. You could do that right now without compare. You just go in and look at them, but this will make it very easy. It also help us start seeing trends. And there's obviously, technology is always developing, but Steve, it's
amazing what you can do with insight.
Amazing what you can do with insight. And the analytics you can run. Well, I put the post out about AI. I've got some great feedback from you guys, and that is a natural evolution of clarity that'll happen in the nearish term. The challenge is that I use AI a lot for a variety of reasons, generally research. And I have had each of the major tools I use are Chat, Perplexity, and Gemini. And I've had each of them come back with completely wrong answers. With a prompt that's worked beautifully, I've had them come back with completely erroneous information. And if we hear about that, the ghost in the machine, whatever, to come back with literally the wrong year. But I didn't give you data for that year. And the conclusions you've come to don't even reflect the current year. Anyway, we got to be, so that's one of the potential challenges with AI. And you see the disclaimers, with the AI is now inside HubSpot. It's inside, a lot of the tools we use every day. And it will be inside Clarity with some warnings. So,
well, I use it multiple times a day, every day.
I'm addicted to Perplexity. I don't use Google search at all anymore.
Neither do I. If I want to Google something, I Perplexity it.
It makes me, yeah, exactly. And it makes me a little like, we were cooking something the other night. I don't remember what, it doesn't matter. And I was like, okay, well, I needed a recipe, and I just threw it into Perplexity. I didn't give it any specificity, and it came back with, when I made an outstanding pasta sauce right out of, that's not business, but I did use this weekend. I used ChatGPT to analyze a really big, complicated data set, and it came back with some terrific analytics. So, the other day,
well, George,
Harry, what's going on? Oh, I was about to hit you up. What's going on in your world, please?
Well, everything's great. Anyway, how do you decide how to use or when you use one over the other?
That's a great question, Barry. I have gravitated to Perplexity, but I will more often than not, if it's something, if it's a quick, I'm satisfied with Perplexity, we're done. But if it's a research, something meatier, I'll I copy the prompt and I'll paste it in a couple of other AI tools. I'll, paste it. And sometimes Claude comes up with some interesting, sort of a different perspective. But I'll just take the prompt, Barry, and then I just look at the result that I get and say, okay, cool. Now I do not use AI to write content. I know some do. Our content is written, for better or for worse, it comes out of here.
Harry, I'll answer your question. So I'm in an AI community, and the guru that leads the group, he's a wizard at all this stuff. But if he cares about an answer, or if there might be some nuances, he'll put it in, I don't know, 6 or 7 of the LLMs and just pick the one he likes best. Or he'll take one that looks good and then put it in another one and refine it a little bit more and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, use multiple and then optimize.
Well, and if you take, let's say you take a data set and you run, you're like, write me a narrative about what you see in this data, which you can basically tell it. I mean, they're learning, the prompts can get more and more simple. Then you take the result, and to Steve's point, cut the whole thing, paste it in, and give me your thoughts on this and expand on the points you think are the most relevant to an audience of people who own businesses with gross revenues between 3 and 10 million. And to Steve's point, you get a different look. Good for first drafts, and not good for final product. But.
Well, let me take issue with that just a little bit, and not 100%, but the magic is in the prompt.
Yes.
If you've prompted it appropriately and you've trained your AI appropriately, it'll give you a damn fine product.
Well, you know what I was psyched to see for the first time the other day? I was able to put in, it used to kind of barf on this, but now it's, barf is a technical term, of course.
Yeah.
I was able to put in the voice of George Sandman, and I was just having fun, and I wrote a comparison between the innovation we see in Formula One and the lack of innovation we see in NASCAR, and how those two compare and how they impact the markets, and how that innovation has driven growth of one sport over the other. And Formula One, of course, the most watched sport in the world behind football, or what we call soccer. It was really cool, Steve. It was very cool.
Mm-hmm.
It did a pretty damn good job. But that may or may not see the light of day as an article. But anyway,
I've got a factoid that this group would find interesting. Unfortunately, I don't have the paper that backs it up. But I'm in another networking group, and one of the guys is a super tech guy. And he was citing a paper. It was one big a large consulting firm ran an experiment. There were some business issues that needed to be consulted upon. So they ran three groups. One group is just the consultants dealing with the issue. The next group was the consultants and AI, but no training on how to use AI. And the third group was the consultants plus with training on how to use AI appropriately to maximize the benefits. And lo and behold, group number 3, the results of the consulting were superior, just by the way.
Interesting. Well, what we used, we're busy recording the C3D, or we're busy, recording C3D. And I took our existing presentations and put them into a tool called gamma.app. That was introduced to me by someone in this community, Andy Weevil, one of us. And Gamma does a good job, but that's another one where you have to be careful. It is a completely AI-driven design tool that adds its own research. The challenge is if you have a deck and you're just trying to change the look and feel, it's terrible at that because it can't help itself. It thinks it's more clever than you are, and it'll just start adding stuff, which can create work. Now, some of it is like, wow, I hadn't thought of it that way. But much of it is, dagnabbit, I just wanted you can edit lightly, and I've tried a bunch of different prompts. But it's super helpful. Where AI saves us probably more than one employee is in that exact arena. Doing the podcasts and the blog posts and the webinars and the recordings. Even this recording we're making right now, that's going to be pushed through AI, which is going to clean it up, edit it, smooth the sound, get rid of any background noise, create a transcript, talking points, and do all of that in 30 seconds. Transcript, summary, talking points, key takeaways, hashtags, all just in literally sub 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And
Gamma, I've used Gamma previously, and it is a pretty slick tool.
And graphics capabilities are awesome.
Yeah, I actually produced a LinkedIn post with it, and I only did 2 or 3 little tweaks to 10 slides or something like that. So it again, it's telling it what to do appropriately.
Yeah.
But
what you should get, and Barry, this maybe goes back to your question. One of the habits that I've gotten into that I find very helpful is when I have a prompt that I think I'll be using, that I may use again. I have a document with all the prompts. Just I cut and paste them, and with a Control F function, I can go in and find it. Perplexity and chat keep your whole history, so you can always go back and find it. But anyway, interesting times. There's some really cool things happening out in the world right now, and there's a lot of enthusiasm. This is not a political statement at all, but there seems to be a lot of enthusiasm. Obviously, we've seen that in the public markets, right? but there's some enthusiasm in the private markets as well. I have a number of phone calls just yesterday, which is a holiday, right? But a number of phone calls just yesterday about, guys seeing upticks in the activity from their clients, and which is exciting. It's a good time it's probably a really good time to be checking in. The courtesy call, right? Hey Bob, just just checking in. How's everything going? No ask. Like, pure courtesy call. It's probably a very good time to be doing that. We've got to be super disciplined about not asking. The psychology is proven on that point. But the courtesy call is very powerful.
I gave you another AI tool that's pretty handy if you'd like to do brainstorming. You know what mind maps are, of course. So there's this tool called Miro or Miro, Miro. I don't know if it's .ai or .io, but anyway, you can start with an idea, and then you can ask it to give you other ideas off of the first idea, and then other ideas off of that idea, and other ideas off of that idea, and blah blah blah. So you can pretty readily brainstorm the heck out of any issue you're thinking about.
That's interesting. Single AI powered collaboration platform that helps teams move faster from idea to outcome. Cool. It's Miro.com, Miro.com.
Okay.
But and all these tools, again, at the end of the day, though, are just tools. They are merely tools. They can help us, but they're just tools.
Well, talk to the plumber that goes to his client without his pickup or his panel van with all of his tools.
Oh, yeah.
Useless.
Yeah.
Tools aren't bad. Of course, you need to know how to use them.
So there you go. That's and you have to understand when to use them, how to use them, and we also, I haven't heard any. I was thinking about whether I've heard someone, at some point clients do not, and it's probably with a pretty small experience. Clients will get tired of getting tooled pretty quickly, right? Because that can cause confusion. It can also cause survey fatigue. There's one organization that we all know very well that has just a series of these high level surveys, and it's like survey. Okay, let's go easy, because they're unrelated, right? And and unconnected. So what else is going on in the world, guys?
Hey, George, where is the updated final report for level 2?
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah, I've got so the priority number 1 is getting 3D loaded into the LMS. After I do that, I have committed to one of your brethren yesterday that I would use his case as a test in my own learning lab to take my current draft of that level 2 report, which is pretty bloody gosh darn cool, and just use his case, and then he's super smart. We're going to walk through and say, okay, what do you think? It's a one-on-one. What do you think of this? Is this something you could tweak and deliver to your client, or deliver as is? So Steve, it's in process and it's coming. Let's talk about this for a moment, if it's okay with you. Level 1, and I had a conversation with one of your colleagues last night, and he loves it. And I think the feedback has been uniformly good. In level 1, we have the best case, and you have 4 choices. We have the best case, and we describe it in words, and the worst case, and we describe it in words. And the other 2 choices are not really and partly true, right? And that's great for driving a conversation. What I've heard several times from people from your colleagues running the deep analysis is that having the partly true and not really, this modified Likert approach, works really well if you're one-on-one with the CEO. But if you start introducing other players into that deep analysis, which is the best, that's a best practice, they end up debating, and a lot, not just on one, but on several questions, like, okay, well, what does partly true mean? And they end up in it is an important conversation. However, it is also, extends the time it takes. It can extend the time it takes to complete the analysis. Okay. That begs a couple of questions. One is, do we just define what partly true means, right? Which I have a draft of. Do we leave it as is? Do we simply say, well, if you guys want to chit chat about what, the definition of each of these, it's just going to take us much longer to get through it, So I'm busy thinking through that. And if you guys have any preliminary thoughts, but Steve.
I do.
I
always have thoughts. Sometimes I don't voice them, but in this case I will.
Please.
I think it'd be good to have the guidance.
Okay.
And then we all can just at our discretion decide whether it's appropriate to apply it or not, depending upon the specific situation. But I think it would be it'd be good to have the guidance.
Well, this would be, the way this would get implemented is that we would go and update the level 2 analysis so that all of the partly truths would disappear. And in some of the questions, there's already, in some of the questions, a few of the questions that we've already defined that, like we have 3 or more reasons, 2 or more reasons, one reason, or 3 or more reasons, 2 reasons, 1 reason, no reasons, that type of thing. But what we would do, Steve, there's no either or. It's just be an update. It's a very straightforward update to level 2 to add these definitions.
Well, if I had
What's the
to,
definition of part? I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
let me just finish up. So if I had to pick, I'd pick what you just said. I'm in favor of specificity.
Yeah.
We're either good or we're bad.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus,
Sorry, Barry, go ahead.
Barry, please.
No, I agree. I mean, either the ball is in the cup or it's not.
Yeah. Exactly right. Well, that's the thing. Is the ball in the cup? Yes. Is it close? Well, what's close?
Yeah.
Is it far away? Well, I don't know. Did you miss the green completely?
Yeah,
That's in the cup and miss the green completely.
Right, but
Close and far away. Yeah.
I think you have to have a definition of these things because otherwise there's too much
Ambiguity.
And if we're looking at the long-term goal is to take 1,000 companies that are in clarity and develop standards.
Yes. It's a great
You're going to
point.
need that specificity, number one. And number two, if we're looking at the score, if you're not specific, the score is meaningless because now you're putting the ambiguity into it. And what is it? How reliable is that score?
So you're
It's a
suggesting
That's a
that you
very good point.
And maybe the word useless is a little bit too strong, George. Okay.
I take umbrage.
But I've only had 1 cup, or not even a full cup. But the specificity, I think, is.
I think you make a very good point.
Yeah.
And we are about to cross over 1,000. We're so tantalizingly close to cross over 1,000 analyses.
I have words, George, because I've had 5 double espressos.
I had a pot of this stuff. I got up at 4. Go ahead, Steve.
No,
so
it's
so
at least questionable.
If I had 5 double espressos, Steve, I would be, bent
so
over.
maybe just maybe that's highlighting you're trying to cure everything. And you got an uncurable, whether it be a leader or something that's driving you to not be 100%. And that drives a follow-up to maybe we either shouldn't be doing that or we need to modify how we're doing it so we can get in compliance in 100% versus keep on pushing down that the elephant in the room that really what's preventing you from getting it to be a 5 or whatever is really you're not paying attention to the outlier that you got to deal with. I don't know.
Yeah, I recently created a questionnaire and I went to yes or no. I don't care if you're almost done. You're either done or you're not done.
Right.
Yeah.
Almost pregnant.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting, if we look at, so one of the, just off the top of my head, if we think of effective senior leadership, when we go to, the business can run smoothly in your absence, owner dependence. Yeah, okay, you just confirmed what several of your colleagues have said, and it works very well. We're going to leave the partly true in level 1 because I want you to I think it's important to have these discussions around what it is. Maybe that changes down the road, but no one is saying, in fact, I'm thinking of 2 guys in particular who've called are like, love it in level 1 and level 2, though, when I'm doing this with a group of people, it would be better to be spot on. And then Barry, your point about analytics is an excellent one.
Hey George, I could pick on you just for humor.
Yeah.
So it's like asking George, "Are you done with the level 2 final report?" And George says, "Almost." Well,
that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
2 months later, or whatever. Anyway,
yeah. Well, you know me. You're going to see it very soon.
I'm just using that as an example.
Absolutely, that's a great example. We will
we go to the 90 IO world and we're talking about rocks and we're basically on track, off track, right? So are we on track to correct whatever it is? And I know that's moving from it's a yes or no. It's a yes or no.
It's green, amber, red, right?
If it's a no, then do we have a rock or identified it as something we're going to work on this quarter or not? Or it might be a long-term range thing that's not really relevant right now, but either on track or off track in order to get you to your goal. So that's a soft way to do it, but it's also whoever's assigned that task has the opportunity to say on track every single week. And when they're woefully behind, 3 weeks later, they have no one but to blame but themselves, right? So it's ability for them to raise their hand, say, hey, I'm off track here. I need some help, and bubble it up as an issue to get to that yes, whatever we define yes is in that meeting, the strategic planning meeting.
I agree with you, which is exactly why we have the green, amber, red system in the business flow scorecard that's embedded in 90. Oh, by the way, we talk about 90. All of this remains available in analog form, and don't be surprised if some of that ends up in the digital world, but inside Clarity. But yeah, green, amber, red. And if you keep telling me you're green and then the deadline comes screaming up, you're right, Joe. As a CEO, I'd be saying, why? Why are you telling me it's green and now we're missing the deadline? At some point, you were either blowing sunshine, you lacked the, that's a tough conversation. So
even on track, off track has utility. And I could even see if you had an amber with a plus sign in it or a negative sign in it, that would have utility. If you're on track, that means we've got a plan, whether it's written on, but a plan, and I don't have any roadblocks, if you're being honest. And if you're off track, that means you probably ought to be raising your hand, see, I'm stuck, I need some help, whatever.
Well, and that goes to leadership. You make a good point, Steve. That goes to leadership because we're using the scorecard to drive our Monday morning meeting, right? And if we're using a scorecard to drive a Monday morning meeting, this is not simply checking boxes. It is a meeting. It is a discussion, and the discussion is designed to promote collaborative accountability. And it is incumbent on the people in the room. And if you're a leader, you can't just sit there listening. If you're a leader, you have to actively listen. You have to participate. And if somebody says, if you said it's green, and I have any reason to believe that it might not be, I can ask as the leader, does everyone agree with that? And I also give permission to the room, guys. What do you think? I'm not trying to call Steve out, but is anybody seeing anything that might impact Steve's assessment that we are all systems go on Project X? But that's part of being a leader. And if the CEO needs to learn how to do that, we can teach them, right? It's just good leadership, good facilitation techniques. It's not easy, guys. There's no easy button having run these meetings, and they sometimes devolve into acrimony, but that's okay. There can be value in confrontation. Yeah.
Is it okay if I change the topic just a little bit?
100%, man. I'm going to have to sign off in 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I got meetings coming up too. But have you talked with about one of the times you weren't in?
On my list. Yeah, go ahead. Why?
We talked about turning up the gain on creating some sort of 3 or 4 use cases or case studies that we all could use as we go forth in the marketplace. And Ridge Tool, or whatever the name of that company is, was suggested, well, that one sort of exists already. So let's talk to George and get that one buttoned up so we can have that one sitting on the shelf. And then let's work together with George and the community and try to come up with 3 or 4 others that we can use when we're talking to our potential clients. So anyway, that's the conversation Sylvana was going to have with you.
That was, it is important, and you're going to see me challenging you guys. You're going to hear me saying, you're the ones who have the cases. We have a very simple format for writing cases: issue, rule, application, conclusion. What was the client struggling with? What is the best practice? We give you the best practices, right? What happened when you applied it, and what was the result? And what was the experience when you applied it, and what was the result? And that a case study could almost be written in a page. It could be a book. But we have, you're going to see me motivating you guys to submit cases on an anonymized basis. That can be, because we need a library of cases.
Yeah.
We absolutely need a library of cases. The other thing
in industries too, that's where, service-based industry and so many more industries other than the manufacturing. So,
it's interesting, Joe. Yeah. We do need some diverse cases. You know, it's interesting, guys. If we bring this full circle, I can't clone myself, but it would be interesting. And anyone listening to this recording, feel free to have some fun. It would be interesting to generate a prompt that could write cases based on, you can export a client level 1 as a CSV, right? If we can export level 1 as a CSV, it becomes very easy to feed to AI and to have AI write a story about what you're seeing. Now that doesn't give us, so we have the issue. Here's what I'm trying to solve for. I want to grow my business. We have that's interesting. There is definitely a way for a sophisticated prompt.
I'll see if I can get to that this weekend, George.
That would be terrific. Please let me know how I can help. I'm up to right up to here with projects right now.
There's 6 more inches left.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to breathe. You don't need to have your hair's not even wet.
You're absolutely right, Barry. The guy's a slacker.
And you got hair. I mean, so what's the big deal?
Here you go, George.
Hey, yeah, goes,
Thank you, Joe. Exactly. And I love it. You know, this stuff is really fun, guys, and it's, you know, these conversations are fantastic. You know, I got asked by someone very interesting. You know, how do we glue what's the glue keeping the community together? And it was nice to be able to tick off several things, this being one of them. I'm like, you know, here are the type of experiences we have. And if we had, you know, at some point we will be able to have multiple of these a week. I won't be in all of them, but, you know, these are terrific conversations, fun stuff.